Today we're joined by Joe and Sam, who are part of the band Fever. They've toured with the Blossoms and are continuing that tour once it's safe to do so. And recently I've done a live stream for Humber Street Sesh. So first of all, how are we, lads?
Yeah, good man, thanks.
Thank you.
A place we usually start with is how and when did you meet and manage? How did that manage to transpire into the formation of the band?
It's me and Joe have known each other for quite a few years now. Like we've played in other bands prior to Fever, and we've done stuff like on and off before over the years. But yeah, Joe, you'll now Fever properly get started.
Yeah, similar to like what Sam's already said, but like me and James sort of vaguely knew each other. He used to be in a band called Frontiers, and I sort of filled in for them a little bit at the end, as did Sam. And then it's obviously kept that communication going whilst played in a few other bands over them couple of years before we started this up. And then Mitch and Charlie, the other lads there, were both mates of James's basically. And we played as a 4-piece for probably best part of a year. And then when it came to we needed a keys player, Sam was sort of my first choice as someone to get in. So yeah, that's how the sort of 5 of us came together, I guess.
Fair enough. Like, what age did you realize you want to start playing music?
It was about 14 for me, really. I was when I was always into the Beatles as a kid, and it just got to that point. Like a lot of kids do. You ask for a guitar at Christmas. And then you start learning a few songs, and then you sort of want to think, one man playing some of these tunes with some other kids, and then sort of get your first band together when you're in school. And it just slowly progresses from there, and you meet other people, join other bands, and it just becomes a bit of a obsessive hobby of doing the band sort of stuff. Well, that's for me anyway.
Yeah, similar for me really. Probably 13 or 14. I think it's when you get to an age when you realise you're never going to be a professional footballer. And then probably the second most attention-seeking thing you can do is try and be a musician, I guess.
Lads, I just want to know, do you think like developing a skill such as playing a guitar or drums at a young age, has that helped with your mental health and focus growing up and that?
I'd say so, definitely for me. As a sort of like young teenager and going into like my mid-teens and that, music was definitely it was there for me at the right time, because like I had a bit of my school wasn't great and didn't have a great time then. Music was it was the main thing that was there for me to go home and sort of just get my head down, and that's all I wanted to do. And it was thankfully just a really good way of expression, sort of just basically bashing out on guitar, and it's just it becomes sort of therapeutic.
Like a little bit of an escape in it,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think as a teenager, there's worse things you can be like, worse things you can do than sort of spend your time putting your effort into something like learning an instrument. You know what I mean? Rather than just hanging about on street corners or whatever.
Getting pitched in a park every
Saturday. Yeah, well, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you did a bit of that as well. But as long as you spread the time out evenly, I guess.
As long as you enjoy yourself, innit?
Aye.
Okay.
But also, boys, what age were you when you decided you wanted to start writing your own songs and doing your own sort of music, like properly?
I think, I don't know, it kind of started when I first started getting into guitar. Like the Beatles were a big inspiration, and that sort of goes for James as well, like our main songwriter. He, like, speaking for a few of us, like, I think we just wanted to start writing from the get-go, and it was just that the idea of like you can make these songs and you can write them, and it's like you see the inspiration from the bands that you listen to whatever time, and they're doing their own stuff, and then just having that freedom of being able to write and get together with your mates. And I mean, sometimes
you kind of think like, if this works, I could become like them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like the bands we was listening to growing up, like Arctic Monkeys. Their background wasn't too different, to ours.
Yeah.
So that was really inspiring. And you think, well, I just picked them up and started writing. I guess we could too.
Yeah, like when it comes to writing songs, obviously you said James writes them him, or does everyone like contribute to it, or is it like inside the band as well?
Well, James usually like as the sort of skeleton of the idea, he comes in with like the chords and the melody. Yeah, and then we sort of take it into the rehearsal room and just sort of chip away, and we all put our own sort of taste on it. It's good that way, because like the songs sometimes don't come out as as originally intended, and
Yeah,
I think there's input from all of us, and it's definitely a sort of joint sort of decision in songwriting and where to go with it. And I think it mainly just stays in the band, doesn't it, Joe? It's just us just chipping away.
Yeah,
slowly.
like I say, it's like sort of communal effort, I guess. Like, by no means am I a writer to any extent, but like I can sort of make suggestions, sort of like structure wise, and double that chorus or whatever. But yeah, it's very much James brings in the sort of initial, maybe like say just a verse and a chorus, and then we just sort of flesh it out from there, really.
So what was the first song you wrote, and what was the if you don't mind me asking, what was the inspiration behind it?
I think the only song James has ever sort of brought in complete was like the first single, Jungle Man. He'd already done like a demo with a guy called Mr. H, who they did the full song together basically. So that's the only one where he's very firmly come in and gone, "Oh, this is your part," and do it exactly like that. Inspiration wise, I've no idea. I couldn't even tell you what the lyrics are to this day. But yeah, you'll have to ask James on that one.
Yeah. Well, I know before we started recording, we mentioned about lockdown and that. With all that free time on your hands, have you been able to write any songs or melodies with that?
I think personally for me, like we came off the Blossoms tour and straight into the lockdown, and coming off that tour, we were just still buzzing, but still like quite confused about the situation of what was happening in the world.
Yeah.
So we had sort of like no choice but to maybe just like sit away for a while and just work. Because personally, I was feeling like quite creative when we came off it, and you think of stuff on tour and you think, oh, I can't wait when we get back, we'll try that. And I think there was a period where James was writing stuff and I was writing and Joe was tapping, and I think there definitely came a sort of spark of creativity at some point just because of the downtime. But that kind of fluctuates naturally.
Yeah, like we just touched on your tour with the Blossoms earlier in the year. Like, how did that make you feel to like be asked to get involved and like spread your name about to like a wider audience?
I don't. Obviously, when we initially got offered it, so we got offered it like 6 months before you actually do it. Which I think when you get the initial call or email or whatever, you think it's like a massive life-changing moment, which obviously it was to an extent, but equally it's not like give up your jobs type thing. But I don't think any of us. I think we knew what to expect in terms of the venues, but in terms of going and doing them size of gigs, I don't think any of us really. Well, apart from maybe James, who I know he'd supported Cortinas with his old band, but it was just a complete culture shock, really. But it was like you got dead used to it within like a couple of nights. It was sort of strange how familiar you got with it, really, and it's almost weirder going back and doing like. Not that we've done any yet, but when we do go back and do our sort of size of gigs where you're just playing like 100 cap venues again, I'm sure that'll be a bit of an adjustment back.
Yeah.
Well, how much would you say that tour with the Blossoms helped you grow as a band?
It was massive, wasn't it? I think we sort of went into it like, a little bit nervous, like we didn't know what to expect. And it's like what Joe just said. You get used to it quite quickly, which was strange. But by the end of the tour, like our playing had got tighter, and our sort of togetherness as a band came together as well, and it was just a sort of experience for us as a band that I think we was just like so lucky to have in the terms of like developing us and just in our sort of playing and how to react to those venues and those crowds.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it was just great to have that. Just spare us on, really. Yeah.
Like, as much as it might have been good for you to be able to like small like little online gigs during lockdown and get your name out there, I'm sure you would agree with us in saying this, but it doesn't come close to the feeling of a real gig. And like, what is it that makes you feel? Like, what makes a gig so good?
Oh man, I just proper miss real gigs. Like you just can't replace it, can you?
Yeah,
like
atmosphere.
that no, room full of people. It sort of just about scratches that itch of wanting to do something live, but at the same time, you want to be in a room with your mates, don't you, doing what you do and having a good time and just listening to live music. But it's just makes you want to sort of get back to it even more. And we will do eventually, won't we? But
hopefully,
yeah.
Would you say that performing at gigs like that has had like, a positive impact on your mental health? Do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think prior to going on that tour, I was probably the one, like maybe me or James, probably most feeling the sort of stress of going on that tour, just because we had to, like, even though like you're on a big tour or whatever, we still had to sort like 100% of everything out, whether it's like accommodation, van drivers, planning the routes, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of stress on that side of things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, up until the lead of it, I felt like I was sort of slightly losing the plot until we actually like got on the tour and like Jimmy, our tour manager, sort of handled everything from literally picking us up until the day he dropped us back off. But yeah, coming back off that tour, I'd say like my mental health was probably for the first couple of months of lockdown. I'd say it's probably the best it's ever been. But I think that's obviously started to go a little bit now, I guess. But.
Yeah.
To add to like what Joe said, I think we've been playing music for a few years now, and I think approaching those sort of venues, I think the effect it had on, like, say, mental health. Like me and Joe have been gigging for a few years and doing your sort of toilet venues up and down the country, and like I think we'll both agree, won't we, Joe, that we've had our fair share of like stints of like bad gigs and sort of thinking, are we doing the right thing? But I think there's that thing in the back of your mind where you do it because you love it, and you do it because you want to play music, and then getting to play these venues just sort of it just made us think, like, if you just keep cracking away and just doing your thing, you'll get good opportunities if you really do love it. And I think that was just such a morale boost. And I think, I hope like a lot of other bands could have the same opportunities too.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't mind, I'm just going to switch that last question a little bit. With lockdown and stuff, you haven't been able to do proper gigs, obviously. Has that had a negative effect on your mental health, perhaps?
I think it did, in a way, that obviously we started this year on such a high, and then literally overnight it just changes. And we had plans to like go to Germany and do like some other tours and gigs up and down the UK. And when you're expecting that, and that is your sort of livelihood, and that's kind of like you define yourself as a musician by the gigs that you play.
Yeah.
And then when you can't do that, because say like me and Joe have probably been gigging for like 10 years maybe in different bands, but yeah, when you suddenly can't do the thing you love, it definitely takes some adjusting, and it was it's hard not to feel bitter about not being able to play, but then you understand that everyone's in the same position. But not being able to do what you love, it's hard, but you've just got to crack on with it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think there's like two sides to it. Like, obviously the year we had like the full year mapped out, or at least as far as like the end of festival season and whatever, which obviously we've not been able to do any of. But yeah, I think there's two sides to it, because obviously you can sort of be like bitter about that, and I don't know, at times you do sort of think, oh, we're finally just sort of starting to like get that first foot on the ladder after all these years, like.
Yeah.
But equally, like, if you look at it the other way, if we'd have been 2 weeks later on that Blossoms tour, we wouldn't have been able to do any of them gigs, and we got to do 7 of the 8. And now, in retrospect, it's probably a good thing we've got. Well, we had 1 show left in London, what's now been rescheduled. But off the back of that, we've also got another 2 gigs with them. So we have got a sort of like a platform to lift off again from whenever we can. So I think looking at it now, it probably was the best thing, really.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious about gigs from both perspectives, as a performer and as a kind of like an attendee of the gig. What's been your best experience in both worlds?
That's a good question. So obviously, from seeing it from both angles, really, it's totally different, isn't it? Like, I think you have a lot of good memories being an attendee.
Yeah.
And like being with your mates, and you make memories like that.
Is there one gig you've been to that kind of stands out in your memory? Like you think about it, you think, yeah, I'll never forget that for as long as I live.
You've got some good gigs, haven't you, Joe?
I saw Paul McCartney at the O2 a couple of years ago. That was good. It was at Christmas time as well, so he played Wonderful Christmas time. I saw Arctic Monkeys at Don Valley in like 2011, and I lost both my shoes, so I don't know if that's good or bad. But
that's a sign of a good time, I reckon.
I found them at the end as well.
Dancing shoes wouldn't have been fun.
Yeah, I found them on the barrier at the end, but they had chewing gum in them. So not what you want, is it?
Well, as you're from Hull, like obviously we touched earlier on doing a set for Humber Street Sesh. Was that a big occasion for you, considering the circumstances?
Yeah, it's like Humber Street Sesh is like the pinnacle of our local music scene's scene, really. Like it's that 1 or 2 days a year where all of us bands from Hull can sort of get together and really sort of celebrate what we have and sort of be rock stars for a day.
Yeah, like what you've achieved and that as well.
Yeah, it was we loved being asked to go and do it, because the Sesh has been, well, it supported us, and to be able to ask to be able to do the live stream, it was really, really nice, and sort of just great to be on it, really, because everyone behind it is just super amazing. So you can't speak highly enough of it, really.
Yeah. Well, so the Humber Street Sesh is basically a festival. It spans from a free music night on a Tuesday called the Sesh, which was at a venue called the Polar Bear, which I worked on the bar at. So that's the sort of connection, really. But yeah, I'd say it was just nice to be asked, and it's like all of our mates are involved in it, and it's just a big sort of family atmosphere, really. But yeah, it was pretty shit your pants scary, doing a live stream thing. And I had to do another one last night, filling in for a different band, and it's just why you put yourself through it, I've absolutely no idea. It's it's just I don't know. I can't even explain it.
Yeah, there's like a TV style countdown, weren't they, to the start of the stream going live. And we sort of just stood there, and it's 5, 4. Oh shit, it's live. And
yeah, that must have been very nerve-wracking, I can imagine.
Yeah, weirdly, after 4 or 5 months of not gigging, you sort of think, oh, can I still do this?
Yeah. Well, I know we touched on before that London date that's been rescheduled. Have you got any other gigs booked in ready for when it's safe and everything's back as it should be?
Yeah, So we're doing that London date at Kentish Town, and then a week before that, we're also doing a couple more dates with Blossoms at Leicester O2 Academy and at Cambridge Junction. And we're sorting like bits and bobs out at the minute. Like we booked a few like sort of warm up shows in Manchester and in Blackpool in March, and then I think we're going to try to get like sort of a proper tour sorted for April, as well as hopefully a hometown show at some point next year. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
In April, you released your third single. What would you say the response has been like for that so far?
I think the response has been like really good so far. I think we've had a lot of nice words about it, and it's got a little bit of radio play as well. When people are saying like nice things and listening to your single, you couldn't ask for anything more really. Like if people are listening to it and enjoying it, it's just you're doing something right as a band. It's just spot on.
Yeah.
Well, what was the inspiration behind that song, and how long did it take you to write? I just want to know.
I think it was written before I joined the band, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, I think it was. I've actually got a demo of it. What James had sent me when he was in his old band. I think I don't think they ever fully finished it, but it was like sounded totally different to what it sounds like now. But yeah, I think it's one of them where it just came together like super quickly in the rehearsal room. But it's one of them. It's like it's not trying to do anything particularly clever. It's just trying to just do that sort of big pop song thing, I guess, and
make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, like obviously, you've released three singles. Now, as like I mentioned a minute ago, have you given any thought into like an EP or potentially an album in the future, or are you just looking at releasing a couple more singles for now?
Yeah, I think we've just announced another single yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which will be coming out in September. And then we are going to do another single after that. But we was originally going to try and have it out before the end of the year, but we're just we're going to just sort of delay things a little bit, because I think we're at a point now where it's good to get another track out now or in the next month, because obviously it'll be nearly 6 months since the last one. But then really anything from there, we need to be out playing it live, really. Like we don't want to get to a point where we've put out all our what we think are our best singles, but we haven't played a gig or whatever. So I think next year will probably be like definitely a single, and then hopefully like a 4-track EP by like the end of next summer potentially. But it's all just dependent on what happens in the world, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we're nearing the end now, lads. So I just want to ask you this one little question: where do you see yourselves in 5 years' time?
Ooh, hopefully playing gigs. I think it's nice to have quite a few releases under our belt. A couple of EPs. I think it'd be nice to have an album.
Yeah.
Whatever could be on that album, we don't know yet. But I think 5 years. I think we'd like to just carry on doing what we're doing. Just plenty of releases, plenty of gigs. Just get further. In terms of traveling.
Try and work your way up that ladder a bit.
Yeah, and just see where it goes. Really, that's all we can do.
For me, I think if in 5 years, like the dream would be obviously if you could earn the same money we all get off doing our day jobs from like music, basically, like nothing spectacular, but just enough to be able to afford to pay your rent and not have to do a proper job. Essentially, that'd be like the dream, I guess. But obviously, that's just all being delayed even further now with what's happened. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, being on these sort of tours with like the Magic Gang and Blossoms, whatever, where you're around people who are like, that's their full-time job and they get paid for it. You sort of, obviously, that's what you want to aspire to be eventually, I guess.
Yeah, you want to reach the level they're on as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for coming on, lads. Make sure you stream all 3 singles from Fever on Spotify and Apple Music and other music platforms. Also, drop their Twitter a follow and show the lads some support. Once again, cheers for coming on, boys.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.